Chapter on LinkedIn Learning, and hope you all are having a great day. I am so excited for today's episode of the C-Suite because one of my favorite people is on with me. We've been through so much together in our evolution, in our personal and professional journey, and when I think of the term digital futurist, I think about someone who's not only relevant in current trends and already thinking about the future, but assessing what's happened in the past so that we are taking the past, the present, and future and strategizing for our digital marketing, content marketing, social media marketing, influencer marketing to create and optimize the absolute best way to implement the strategy that puts us ahead of the game, that keeps us in the now and for the future. And when I think about the term digital futurist, I also think of my dear friend, Brian Fanzo, who is with us today for the next 30, 45 minutes. So get your pen and paper out, because there's going to be a lot of great tips from today. What to expect for all things top marketing trends for, again, content marketing, social media marketing, influencer marketing. We're talking tech, business, even top apps to be on the lookout for. We will have the chat open, so feel free to join us in the chat. We're coming to you live, powered by Restream on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's get this party started, shall we? Like I said, digital futurist, global speaker, host of Press the Damn Button and iSocial Fans, and my dear friend, Brian Fanzo. Woo! Thank you so much for being here with me, Brian. Brian and I both have very hectic schedules, so when we actually connect, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, we do. We're those millennials, right? We're running all around, and I love the nostalgia. And even during my intro, I remember, our connection. I remember the very first time that I saw someone, so proud of being a millennial and so putting it out there and owning it. And I was like, yes, she's my girl. And thankfully we became friends, got to do so many things together. So excited to be here.
Me and Brian had a few minutes before we went live, and we were kind of just road tripping down memory lane. Brian and I have known each other, I think we've known each other since 2012, 2013.
Yes.
And we started doing really awesome things together, 2013, 2014. And if you guys can remember what 2012, 2013 was like, I mean, it was a different planet landscape than it is in 2021. I mean, influencer was still not a household term. Millennial was still a big question mark. Talking about influencer marketing, social media marketing, content marketing was still very foreign for Fortune 500 companies, let alone solopreneurs. Yeah. So it's just amazing how far we've come culturally, digitally, socially. Maybe some things are a little disappointing right now. So hopefully we get on a little bit of a better track in 2021. But if there's someone to help give some inspiration and also help us assess future trends, predictions, top tools, apps, and tactics, that, there's a lot of things out there that we can waste our time doing. What did you say, Brian?
I was. So, and I'm the one that goes and wastes my time, so you don't have to, right? That's what I like to say. It gives me an excuse to play everywhere. So yeah, I'll waste my time, so you guys don't have to waste your time.
I have to say, Brian, that's one of my biggest questions that I get from a lot of my consulting and my coaching clients is, there's so many platforms, there's so many channels today, how do you know where you really should be spending your time? I definitely have my answer, but I'd love to know what's your quick answer to that question?
So I don't think you have to be everywhere. That's partially why I am everywhere, is I want to know what is working, what is not. But, I think the most important piece is you need to be marketing where your audience is today. Let's face it, that's the most important. But I feel like we have to listen to where our audience is going tomorrow. So that's why I always tell people, one of the things that I think we sometimes overestimate is well, my audience isn't on TikTok. And it might be true, but there might be some things that we can learn on why are there certain audiences there and what are the things that are attracting people there. And so I'm a big fan of like listening to the trends but really still leaning into, what's working in the moment.
Absolutely. And it can be really overwhelming to the point where I think many people don't take action. There's too much to assess. I'm kind of overwhelmed by the menu of options today. We're going to dive into a few of the up and coming apps and tools that you might be hearing, buzzing about, like Clubhouse. I feel like that is like the new Snapchat, the new TikTok of 2021. But I really do want to set the tone for what everyone can expect for this episode together, Brian, because you really are a digital futurist and you have been for the past decade plus. But we're talking big ideas for 2021. And one of the things that you're really driving home entering into this new year is the reinvention of our 2021 mindset and this hybrid future. Can you define what this hybrid future means to you and really to all of us right now?
Yeah. So I think, it's funny when I was thinking back about us connecting, right? Like the idea of a Twitter chat, we were both hosting Twitter chats. Your Twitter chat has been like one of the longest running ones that I've been such a pleasure to be a guest on almost, I think every year for, across since we've known each other. So much of what we were talking about is like connecting community, right? And I think we can both agree, like the best compliment we could get from our audience or those people that we meet offline was, you are the same person you are online as you are offline. Like, it's like a really great compliment, but like at its core, it's like, well, duh, like who else am I going to be? Like, what is the difference? And I think what 2020 taught us more so than anything else is that we can't think about it as online versus offline. We can't think about it as virtual versus non-virtual, right? It's all this like intertwined version, right? I think when we think about reinventing the future, I think one of the mistakes we've been making for years, right? And partially it's because there wasn't enough incentivization for us to actually live in this world, but we were just taking what worked offline and throwing it online and being like, it'll work, like we'll figure it out. But I think that's why so many things have been difficult to succeed because it's something I preached, and I give my dad full credit is my dad was like, my dad grew a very large candy company, candy company, peanut brittle was his thing. And he always was like, son, I love the social media thing. I love the digital and the things you're doing, but just remember, nothing you do online will replace a handshake, right? Nothing you do online will embrace the importance of that. And I always fired back like, Dad, if you invest in online and you embrace this world, it'll give you more handshakes and make some of those handshakes, a digital hug when you meet someone offline. And I think we've been living that for so long, but I think 2020 proved that, right? To so many people, so many businesses that would have never imagined they would go online. We're all of a sudden online and succeeding, right? Other ones that were kind of dabbling in that space. And so I think the hybrid future is this mindset that we have to take and like kind of strip away the mechanics of what we do offline and see how we can reinvent it in this virtual world, right? And so it's not about one versus the other, but we do have to kind of think about them in two different, approaches. And I think virtual has been proven, right? Working from anywhere. We've had the luxury of doing that for most of our career. But I think what we've truly proven is this idea and this principle of the future is what you make of it. And it's not about where you work. It's more about what we can accomplish together and kind of leveraging the synergy with technology.
It's amazing to think that there was any resist happening for small business, big business in the year 2019 for social media, for content marketing, influencer marketing, going virtual at all. But then boom, 2020 hits. And it takes away your option. It takes away your choice if you want to stay relevant, right? 2020, if you want to stay relevant, if you want to keep your brand business community going, you had to be virtual. You had to be online. So I love this concept that you're talking about of, shrinking the distance beyond the screen, because one of the things that you and I loved doing the most was being at live events, shaking people's hands, looking at people, hugging people, touching people, not social distancing, right?
Right. Yeah, that wasn't even a word. Right?
and really, you know, we've been in so many incredible workshops and masterminds where we've gotten to really be a part of this futurist mindset that is still not necessarily an option for us live in person, but it is virtually, digitally, even just joining a live stream like this today, right? So how can we shrink the distance beyond the screen? And what is your prediction for 2021 in regards to, I don't think we're going to be doing much mass gatherings right away. So, you know, how can we keep this sense of community going without the fatigue of Zoom fatigue, social fatigue? I can't look at a screen anymore. I've been hearing a lot of that. So, you know, help us reshape that mindset because obviously I think this is our reality 2021 as well.
So I think, you know, one of the things I think it's been funny, you know, just in this like virtual transformation in the virtual world that we're living in is, you know, a lot of people are like, Brian, you must be so excited. We've moved virtual and everything's online and everyone's using video. And I think early on, it was kind of like, you know, a little bit of an overload. But I think when we think back now, like, I think there's a new appreciation for video unlike ever before, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that are like, I could do video, but I don't. Or the kids are doing the video. Like that doesn't, like my company doesn't need to do that. And all of a sudden they were thrown into it. And all of a sudden it was simple to click the button and every meeting, every call became a Zoom, right? Or you know, video conference. But I think the thing that we can kind of start to take away from this is it not only does it take us effort to create these things, but we as the consumer, me as the audience, have to make the commitment that we would offline to making things work. Like, it's amazing to me when someone's like, oh, I hate virtual events. I hate sitting there for 3 hours and like listening to one thing. Like I have so much to do. And I was like, but you would fly to an event and sit there for 3 days for 9 hours, you know, not answering email, not, you know, like, and so I think there's like a weird disconnect where we aren't committing the effort. We aren't making the, you know, dedicating the space, putting a block on our calendar and not trying to multitask. And so there is something to be said about like, we own the Zoom fatigue, right? If you want to get the maximum value out of it that we got offline, let's commit the same time. Let's make the same effort. Let's really make those things work. And I think we're seeing that, right? And I think part of it had to do with this like buzz of what, you know, like the word interactive. It became like the word I started to hate. Like, it's just like, oh, it's still just, actually, I still hate it because like I've never believed that every talk, every virtual presentation should be interactive. And honestly, not everything should be live, right? Like there are places and things that fit. And when I would hear this like interactive, I started pushing back. And it was funny. People were like, Brian, I want to hire you to speak because I know you're going to make this talk really interactive. And I was like, you want it to be interactive? Or do you want me to maintain the audience's attention for the entire talk? And they're like, well wait a second. Like, you know, like, isn't that interact? I'm like, well, because I could just ask the audience, like, where's everybody from? And everybody puts their, you know, their location in it, right? Like, everybody give me a thumbs up. Like, do you want everybody to live in the chat box or do you want me to create compelling content? And so to me, that's like one of those weird spaces. And I think to go to your question on like where we're moving in the future, I think we have to get very intentional with how we use virtual, how we use video, the expectations that we have for our audiences. But I'm with you. Like I've said it, like I don't, you know, for me, I speak on a lot of, you know, enterprise tech, right? Like that's my stages, big 20,000 person events. I don't see those coming back until the spring of the following year. And I'm okay with that because I do believe we can provide some universal value leading up to it. And like my prediction for, you know, let's say a year from right now is the offline events are going to be better than they've ever been before. We're going to be more rich in value. We can go deeper because we now are going to have virtual to subset that 360 days before the 5-day event, right? And it's really going to be a much deeper enriched experience. And ultimately, it's what you and I have done all the time, right? Like when we meet in person, it's never like, how's the weather? What's going on with you? It's just a continuation of the life that we live, you know, connected online.
Totally. And I think, you know, and that's definitely one of the benefits of 2020. It's really made us had to rethink our digital approach and not necessarily take it for granted because there was a lot of clutter in the landscape. There was a lot of, you know, crap online. And so we have to kind of weed through the clutter, find our people, find our communities, and find the resources. And when I say resources, I'm also talking platforms and experts that are delivering that content to us online. And that might be the virtual engagement you're searching for, or the workshop, or the mastermind, or even the DIY course, right, online for 2021. So it's really about finding the people that you believe are giving you the quality information. And I think that's one of the things that we'll see more about virtual events too, is we'll see more quality talent, coming onto these events in 2021 that were kind of just waiting to, fire back up these mass gathering, 500, 1,000 marketing events at convention style. However, you did tease a little bit about video. And video. I have been preaching the importance of video for years and years. Now we have live stream more available at our fingertips. I mean, look at us. We are being powered by Restream platform, everyone. If you don't know Restream, me and Brian are in this very fancy dashboard where we see our chat. I could drop in graphics. I could connect up to 30 channels at one time. So that means Brian and I can be broadcasting live on all these channels at one time. So we're coming live to you on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. If you have a Twitch, these are all the ability. We have all these capabilities at our fingertips right now that people, individuals, solopreneurs, but also big companies and even events have the opportunity to take advantage of. So let's talk about video marketing, because I think it's one of the biggest content marketing trends for 2021. Give us some of your, futuristic thoughts on how we're going to be using and applying video this year, more and also maybe differently than previous years.
So I like where you went with that, because I think one of the things we have to remember, like every year since 2015 has been the year of video, right? Like you said, and the bold prediction is next year is going to be the year of video as well, right? Like it is that, anyone that believes in authenticity and humanizing your brand and connecting with your community, like video is the answer. But video is also scary. It's been intimidating, and over the last couple of years, the barrier to entry has definitely been shrunk, right? Like you can literally do anything from your mobile device. Like one of my brand clients that I do some video for that will go live tomorrow, I did it on my iPhone. Like I have all the gear. I have 5 cameras set up, and I was like, you know what? Like the angle I wanted to go and where the sun was, my iPhone ends up being a better, capture this video content than anything else. And so I do think, video is emerging. But I think, what we learned in 2020 was, as we looked at people, embracing video and working from home, we started to see people being okay with their kids walking behind them, right? And realizing that you're multitasking and Zoom, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and that world exists. And I think that's beautiful, right? I think that is a beautiful thing. And so I think part of the trend is going to be for us to lean into that. Now, I say that with a little bit of a hesitation, because we saw some brands that wanted to manufacture vulnerability, or oh, we want make the camera shaky so it doesn't seem like we're paying $600,000 for this video or whatever it may be. And so I think one of the trends we're going to see is more of these authentic, I like to say participatory video, where you're talking with the audience, not at the audience, right? That piece of it is exciting. And we've talked a lot about actually, I think you and I talked about this a couple of years ago when we were doing, I think, the stuff with Impulse, and there's episodic content, right? We've talked a lot about what does an episodic content mean? I think we're going to see bridges across multiple mediums, right? That goes first to a podcast episode to a video piece, right? Video still has been a little bit siloed in the content marketing cycle. And I think we're going to start to see it kind of blended in, which to me is exciting, because I think we're going to get creative there. And then the other piece of it, TikTok, for those that aren't studying what works on TikTok, I mean, the watch time on TikTok is unlike any platform in the world, It's pretty amazing. And one of the things that TikTok has enabled, I've interviewed over 80 creators on TikTok that are from non-traditional influencer space. So doctors, stay-at-home mom, lawyers, nurses, military, teachers. And I was just asking them, why are you creating content on TikTok, not LinkedIn, not Instagram, not Facebook? And if I summarize what I learned from these interviews, was they would say, well, I'm not a storyteller. I wasn't a creator. I wasn't a marketer. And they were TikTok, because of the algorithm, started to serve up people that look like me. And they're like, well, then I started to find my people. And then I saw a trend, and I didn't have to be the voice. I didn't have to be the creative like genius. And I didn't even have to really be the one that came up with something fun. Like I just jumped on video and tried it. And they were like, then I realized video is not hard. Then I added my own audio. Then I realized I had something to say. And all of a sudden it like really changed this concept. And so like my challenge for everyone out there is how can we do that same thing with the video we create everywhere, right? Like how do we allow people to feel as though their voice should be heard? We can connect with them. You know, an interview, you know, TikTok might be 15 seconds to 60 seconds total. You might think of it as dancing only content, but I can tell you, I've probably bought more products off of TikTok than I have all of last year. And I've connected with lawyers, doctors. You know, actually one of the calls I had this week was with a doctor that has 12 million followers on TikTok, and he's giving advice on when you should go in to see your doctor, right? And he's doing it in a fun and creative way. And like, if your doctor can take the time to create fun content to inspire you to get a checkup, I think every brand can rethink how they're using video content.
You know, I love that, and you're even motivating me to think more about TikTok because I've had I practice what I preach, and I will not sit up here and tell you to do this, this, and this unless I personally do it myself, tried and true.
Right.
And I'm a very big believer on you don't have to be on every platform too, but it is great to assess what's working and trending on all channels, let alone just to lock up your username on all channels.
Sure.
Right, for personal branding efforts and to, you know, stake your claim, because you never know when you might want to fire it up. But I think what TikTok has done is part of one of my trend predictions for video for 2021. I think one of the bigger predictions for video is that it's a little bit more of a stripped down approach, a little bit more of a more organic, real approach. So, you know, when we started working in 2012, even the 2010, it was so broadcast television, right? Every influencer like us wanted to get on GMA and Today and MSNBC and CBS, and which are still valid and still powerful platforms, of course. But but you and I could flip on our iPhone and go live wherever we are at whatever time, which could actually have a bigger impact on our personal community. So I think this more stripped down, more chillaxed approach to video is also humanizing the communication and building more community. And TikTok kind of takes away the need to get up there and speak like a pro or have an interview at all times and be a little bit more silly, a little bit more engaging, a little bit more like clip to clip to clip to clip versus a 30-minute produced stream of sorts, all while making it more infotainment style, right? Informational yet entertaining. Again, you gotta go through the clutter of TikTok to find your people, to find the message that you're looking for. But for anyone who still has that hesitation of, oh, I don't know if I'm good on video, video intimidates me, I don't like what I look like, we can have a million, you know, reasons why we don't do something, right, Brian? Right. Versus just taking the leap, pressing the damn button, not talking yourself out of it, and more of leaning into it, because video is here to stay and it's only getting more powerful. Not only for brand awareness, brand building, community building. If you are in e-commerce, if you are trying to sell services, I mean, video does have the largest conversion rate today, period.
Yeah, and it's that, you know, looking in someone's eyeballs, right? And I think part of that beauty that we look at it, like I look at video where for a long time it was like, not even trying to go viral, but how many people can I get to watch my video? Like the thing that I pitch, and actually for the clients I work with, they hear this a bunch, but like the thing I focus on is repeat viewership. Right? Like I don't care how many views one video gets, but if I can get someone to come back and watch multiple videos, you know, over a length of time, it shows that commitment, it shows that depth. And I think if we can think of video as our ability to build that deep trust, that like turn a fan into an influencer into an ambassador, like that's where the true value of video can be. And let's face it, we know, I mean, word of mouth marketing has never been more valuable than it is right now. I love that you brought up like the e-commerce side. I was actually on Clubhouse, which I know we'll talk about in a minute, but I was on Clubhouse with a lady who had magnetic eyebrow lashes. And in 1 year, she took her business from $0 to $30 million using e-commerce video. And all it was her from the corner of her apartment. And her quote was, during the thing, she was like, when I finally was making money, I moved, and my video started to do worse because people were like, oh, now you're too good. And she was like, the thing that really worked was she was wearing them. She was asking questions. She was replying to videos, right? Like she would take the most popular questions she got about her eyelashes and reply with a video and like highlighting that. And all of a sudden, these people just started spreading that stuff like wildfire, right? And I think there is something beautiful about if you can truly be honest and go deep with your small audience on video, that can really create the wildfire to come back and advocate for you in many ways.
Oh, totally. And to echo such an important part of don't get hung up on the amount of people on your live stream or the amount of immediate likes on a video, because you said it again before. It's like we're going to stop siloing video into like one category of content marketing, because I want everyone to think about this real quick. And I call it like repurposing it like a boss. So Brian and I are coming to you on a live stream. We're going to have 30, 45 minutes of long form content right here. Within the 30 to 45 minutes, how many different topics are we going to touch on, right? So there's going to be 60-second, 90-second, 2-minute clips that I call little snackable sound bites or micro content that both Brian and I could edit from the long form content and have 60-second, 90-second videos to share across all social channels, to drop into Instagram stories, to take a clip out and even drop it into email marketing initiatives, drop it into chat forum for a little quick tip or a how-to or a did you know or my prediction. So I think our content marketing approach for 2021 needs to be how I can repurpose smarter. I'm all about working smarter, not harder. So we're taking the time to spend an hour together. How much content is that really giving us? And the fact that if you're going video, you're talking to your audience, eyeball to eyeball, and then you can always add copy to your caption, put it into a blog post, put it into an article, drop it on LinkedIn. I mean, there are so many great platforms that we can take advantage of inserting video here. Yep. So something to think about if you're hesitant about your video content strategy is that you can repurpose long form video, even those webinars, workshops, right? Chunk them into a DIY course for download or a lead magnet on your website. So many great things to do, especially with video. So we're talking, you did tease Clubhouse again. Let's talk about the really apps to be on the lookout for this year, where you think it might be most worthy of people to spend their time. You definitely TikTok, great little nod of why we should maybe reevaluate TikTok for 2021. But talk to us, top apps to be on the lookout for this year.
So, I think Clubhouse, for those that, are familiar or unfamiliar with it, Clubhouse kind of emerged the end of last year, over the last couple of weeks. It's an audio only, invite only, and at the moment, iPhone only, platform that allows you to spin up rooms and have active, real-time conversations. It's very FOMO enabling. There's no recording of the audio there, and you can pop up rooms. It kind of emerged quickly in the artist scene. So we had celebrities jumping on it. Last night, there's a couple of different actually massive musicians that were sharing Bitcoin secrets on the app last night, which I thought was really interesting. And kind of really a piece of it that's really beautiful is it is like a live talk show where you're able to drop in, drop out. You can come up to the stage, you can come off the stage. Very, transient, but kind of fun. It has a very deep intimacy because it is audio only, and you can multitask and be on it through different places. So it's only iPhone at the moment. It is invite only, but you can jump on at joinclubhouse.com and secure your username, and then they're slowly kind of dripping out invites from there. But I think one of the things that I've learned, I got on there the first week of November, and I've spent a lot of time there. And I think the critical thing to take away from it, like let's say you don't even want to bother with the app, but one of the critical things to take away is we are craving that exclusivity, that vulnerability, and that intimacy of conversation, right? Like, and one of the things I've heard a lot where people are like, well, is this going to replace podcasts? And I actually think it's going to make podcasts kind of reinvigorate podcasts, because the power of audio, I've always preached the importance of audio. I've had podcasts now for 7+ years, is that, when we're on video, we decide what the audience is visualizing. But just like when you're reading a book, right? Like every book that's turned into a movie, the movie is sucked every time, because when you're reading the book, you get to choose what you're visualizing, the stories that you're thinking about, right? And then when someone puts on movies, it's a disconnect. And so I've always loved that audio intimacy that podcast allowed. But the problem with that was always one way, right? Like I love getting messages from those that listen to my podcast on Twitter, but like it's a text message back from an audio listen, right? And so Clubhouse is that app that, it really, I think it originally kind of took off from like the venture capitalists, that world, for like the networking side, but then it kind of hit the music scene. And now I'm seeing a lot, it's very diverse. Like I'm really enjoying some conversations on entrepreneurship and mental health. There was a discussion on there, last couple of days that was, had some mental health professionals, had some successful entrepreneurs sharing like very intimately. So Clubhouse definitely one to keep an eye on. My answer to it as a futurist is it feels too good to be true at the moment. Like, I'm not sure, like when it opens up to Android and it opens up more broad, I'm not sure how that intimacy conveys. I could be wrong. I'm perfectly happy with being wrong there. But I think for me, that also made me think about like where else we have to think about going, right? And I think we have to really think about where can we go and create small exclusive groups of people and go deep with them, right? So there are, we've seen a lot of virtual event platforms some of them got bought by big companies, some of them are moving around. But I think one of the beauty of where we can go is that, webinars still are webinars, right? They still are kind of, you flash them up, you deliver some information, you go away. I think creating these kind of micro communities that you can really go deep and we've seen things like a Patreon, even OnlyFans, and some of those where you're like, hey, I can get this free content anywhere, but the fact that it's exclusive, the fact like I feel like I'm part of something, the fact that I feel as though that because I'm spending my time and my money, I'm getting some kind of something that no one else can get. I think that's where we're going to emerge, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, even TikTok allow more private communities in there. I wouldn't be surprised if Instagram Reels started to create this ability to share Reels amongst each other and kind of have this like video to video conversation. Because right now I still feel like a lot of the video, let's just say inside of Instagram, is like you have video chat, you have video Reels where you can put music, you have video Instagram stories, you have IGTV. Like it's very funny. Like Instagram was the app that was like, we do one thing and one thing well, and now they do like 300 things. But I think like for me, I'm very interested to see how we can create micro communities that allow us to go deep and really be exclusive. And I think that's what Clubhouse has proven to me, is that the need is there. And now it's just about, leaning into that.
Well, there 100% is a great trend and prediction that we'll see. I think I totally agree with you, being leveraged more or being evaluated how to approach it more in the micro fashion. So micro content, 30 to 60 to 90 seconds, right? Because we do have to feed the short attention span of all of us today. It's not just millennials. We all have short attention spans. Micro communities, really immersing ourselves into a more niche-minded, like-minded group of people versus trying to speak to 5 million people at the same time. I also think another micro trend is the continued rise of the micro influencer. So we could talk influencer marketing all day long. Influencer marketing is such an effective part of our marketing strategy, especially because we are more virtual and digital than ever, right? But I think, it's not about the people that have the 1 million+ followers, even the 100,000+ followers. It's about the people who have micro influence, but have significant influence on that micro community. So micro trend, right? And kind of different silos there. So making our way into the influencer marketing conversation, I think we're going to see an evolution in influencer marketing because of the evolution of the digital, social, even cultural landscape. coming out of 2020. Give us some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we had to look at, if you look at like 2020 and what we kind of look, the idea of like advertising and an idea of like offline events where someone's able to just create a bunch of momentum because they're at some offline event. Like I would argue, and it'd be interesting to hear what, those that are listening, but like, I actually think influencer marketing's like true growth and like coming to market is this year. Like I think we've been dabbling. There's still like, because let's face it, like the concept has been there since the beginning of time, right? Like we buy from the people that we trust, that we know, right? Like if someone recommend, we could hear a commercial about something 300 times, but our friend that comes over and says, "Oh, I love this, Instapot." All of a sudden we're like, I have to have an Instapot, right?
I need the Instapot.
It's because it's that person that I know and like and trust, right? And so that's not new. But I think what we've realized is that just because someone has a bunch of followers does not mean they have the ability to inspire people to take action, right? And like, to me that, and you and I mean, we literally talked about this in 2014 on stage at an event. I remember you and I were like kind of this, because we were preaching it at the side where we weren't really focused on building a following. We were really going deep. And like I've always said, like anyone can build a following. The real magic is building a community that will follow you no matter where you go, right? And I think we're seeing that now, right? I think some TikTokers are really able to bridge onto video. They're going to bridge onto email newsletter. Some of them, that's like completely foreign, right? Like a couple of calls I've had, someone's like, Brian, do I negotiate a price? Like, do I need a media kit? And like they have 2.5 million followers and their audience, like, I mean, engagement is amazing, right? And so one of the things I've found, like I was really amazed, like as my speaking business took a real big hit last year, my influencer brand work went up 5 times. And the thing that I found were people coming to me and being like, Brian, we just want you to talk real about what we do and the things that matter. And I was like, well, I can do that. That's kind of what like we both do that really well. Right? And that's like kind of our brand. And I feel like as we move forward, this idea, like when I think about micro influence, if we think of it this way, right? It's the ability to have trust with a certain amount of audience. And we've heard it. And I remember Ashton Kutcher did his interview on my favorite podcast, which is called Armchair Expert. It's hosted by Dax Shepard, by far my favorite podcast. And Ashton said, like, he loved being able to reply to every comment and make people feel really comfortable. And all of a sudden his following got so big that not only did he feel disconnected, but he started to realize that 10% of his audience, he would go getting 10% of his audience to do anything he ever asked, right? He could accidentally talk about the restaurant he went to and 10% of his audience would be outside that restaurant and take a picture, right? And all of a sudden, as he grew, it went to 1%, 0.5%, because that intimacy is hard to scale, right? It's hard to keep that. And so the micro influencer has that, right? Like, and like when we talk about that, like, yes, they might be able to get less people to take action, but I would argue the people that are taking action, talking about it, celebrating it, coming back with feedback versus, hey, I can inspire 100 people or 20 people. Those 20 people are going to talk about it to their friends. They're going to come back to that influencer and share it. And so I think that's the thing that's beautiful about like where I think we're emerging and where we're going to is I'm really excited to see us kind of emerge into this idea that, the influencer partnership and collaboration is not really about how many total followers you have, but how many people can you inspire to take action and continue to take action over time?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, one of the core foundations of that, the term is trust. Yep. And I think we've all been rocked to the core over the past year of the lack of trust and who to trust and where to trust, which has been very disappointing, right? Which is why the silver lining to that is that we have the ability to choose so many different individuals versus bigger publications, broadcast outlets. I hate to say it, but the President of the United States, right? We have the ability to choose who we put our trust in because there is more options now, right? We have more access now to people, to platforms, that are true experts in their niche field as well, providing the information in regards to what's worthy of me taking action on, what's worthy of me investing in, what's worthy of me purchasing or spending my time. So I think, trust and micro influence is definitely all part of the overall trend prediction for 2021, because that goes into social, that goes into content marketing, goes into influencer marketing, goes into digital marketing efforts across all platforms that we're talking in digital, right? So one of the things that I just want to wrap up, because we are here on the suites, the C-suite, and it's all about finding our sweet spot, right? Because you even said it in one of your videos that's even pinned to your Twitter right now, that you don't necessarily believe in work-life balance, right? Because we're always plugged in, and now that we're even more committed to digital and virtual, it's hard to unplug, right? Because we're not going into the office and seeing the team tomorrow, or we don't have the event coming up in a week from now. So digital is really essential, right? And connection is essential. So for someone who's such a digital native and so immersed in technology constantly, how do you find your work-life balance? Where do you preach to find work-life balance, you know, especially as we move into this new year, new mindset?
So I think one of the things we have to think about is it's not about, because like the balance is the hard part, because you're going to always feel out of balance, right? No matter where you lean, it's going to be like, there's like, oh, how do I make up? And like a pet peeve of mine has always been, you must unplug to find like your humanity and your synergy. Because what do we all know? When you unplug, it feels great. The minute you plug back in, you're overwhelmed, behind, inundated. It's like, wait a second, like, yes, I got 3 days of joy and pleasure, but now I got 9 days of hell, like building on it. And so like, I think rather than finding a balance, we have to just manage what we allow to interrupt our life, right? Like my big thing is notification management, right? Like you need to make sure, and like, so I have multiple iPads. I have 2 iPads, a MacBook, and an iPhone, right? I'm a geek. I have no problem admitting that. But like what I allow to interrupt me when I'm sitting at my desktop is completely different than the iPad that I have sitting by my TV when I'm watching TV, right? Like, oh yeah, I want Twitter notifications to pop up. I want, you know, like I want to know like news. I want like the latest podcast. But when I'm here, the only things that are popping up are things that are priority, you know, like messages from people that I know. Like I think we have to really hone in on like what we're allowing to distract us. And I also think we have to, and this might be like, you know, more of a pet peeve of mine, you know, like I'm multi-hyphenated, and which really just means I have passion and dedicated on focus on multiple different things across a wide range, right? And I've always believed if you have a niche, you should own it, double down, and crush it. But if you don't, and you're like me and you've struggled to find one niche, you can still find success. You just have to do things a little bit differently, right? And like that's kind of what I'm kind of preaching a lot this year. And I think one of the things that comes into is making sure that you understand how to prioritize and even reinventing your day, right? Like for me, I was diagnosed ADHD at 31 years old, and it was such a like amazing day. Like I remember what I was wearing. I know where the doctor's office was. And the reason was it made me realize that I wasn't broken. I was just different. Yeah. And that difference is because I learn different, I consume different, I act different, right? And one of the things I do is my day is completely different than most people, right? How I break it up. People will be like, Brian, why are you all over social from like 5 p.m. to 7? Well, it's because like I've learned like that's when I'm not very focused. So I'm now allowing myself the freedom to do this. But between the hours of 9 and 11, when I'm like dialed in, I'm dialed in now, right? And it's like that interesting world where like who works 9 to 5 and believe like not everyone should be working 9 to 5 if you have the luxury to like work where you want. And I think we have to be very deliberate with understanding ourselves. It's like, I think for me, it's not like, I don't know how you feel. Like every time I read an article, it's like 6 things billionaires do before 6 a.m. It like gives me I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be a billionaire. Like I don't do it. I feel like, but like, I think if we take a step back and be like, why do they do those things? How does it change their day? And then how can we implement that in our life, right? Like I'm a dad of 3 little girls. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And being able to like, even with my middle daughter, her and I talk a lot, but with her school, and I'm giving her things where I'm like, Daddy doesn't want you to do schoolwork for 2 hours right after school because you don't work best that way. I wish I knew that, right? Like I would sit there for 2 hours at the school, watch my brothers do really good with their schoolwork, and like I couldn't stay focused. And so I think like my advice is really, we just need to become extremely hyper self-aware and decide how we can redesign our life, our day, our world to be best for us. And I mean, there's no better time for that than right now, because we're all reinventing the future together. Like, I mean, we're going to decide what this future looks like. And if we start by being self-aware, we can each kind of put our own little imprint on how we want the future to look like.
I love that as like a conclusion before we move into our 60-second quick tip, because I so believe, Gigi's growling out the window. Excuse me, Gigi, mommy's live. Thank you.
See, there you go, right? Human and authentic on the show, unplanned.
Come here, Gigi. Want to say hello? Say hello to everybody. Come on.
There you go.
Little G for the ending. But I do believe that everyone. I do believe that, you know what, 2020 was probably of our roughest year in life, right? Yep. I talked to so many of my grandparents' friends and my grandparents who are 80 and 90, and, you know, they're talking about their 90-year experience, that this was the hardest year they've ever witnessed, survived through, experienced. So, you know, pat ourselves on the back that we're here and we made it, sure. And that we're taking action right now, whether you're listening, watching, joining in, taking notes. Look at my notes.
Love it.
Always pen and paper, even though I'm a total digital native as well. Right. But I love the whole, like, find out what works best for you, because if you have the privilege of creating your day-to-day schedule, then you are privileged, right? Versus, like, you know, at 8 o'clock I have to be in the office, at 9 o'clock I'm doing rounds, at 10 o'clock I'm doing it, right? So if you have the ability to assess your calendar and assess your day, then figure out what time does work best for you, of when you do when you are working at your best versus when you do need a break. When I started doing calendar blocking, time blocking in my calendar several years ago, it changed my life. Because I knew that I needed a me moment here, and I needed a lunch break there, and I'm great on live camera at 3 o'clock, not at 9 a.m., right? So because this is so fresh in the year, and everyone's probably figuring out how to work smarter, not harder, how to be more productive, maybe you need to look within before you're looking without, right?
Yes, and if you recognize you have that privilege and you're not taking advantage of it, you're doing a massive disservice, right? Like, we have the privilege to work how we want, yet we are still trying to conform into this, like, bubble that, I mean, let's face it, was created because of, like, the electronic grid and, like, how they wanted to save power in the country. Like, it's funny how that works. So, like, if you look and realize you have that privilege, we need to take advantage of it.
Go for it. Exactly. Especially because, like, you know, no one's going to do it but you better. And if you have the ability to do, you know, control your schedule, then take full initiative to control it. That gives you the most productive, you know, time back in your day. You might even be so productive that you go down to a 4-day work week versus a 5-day work week. Yeah. I know that there are certain weeks that I do have that privilege because I'm able to get it done in the way that my time blocking works for me, and I really have a half day or really take off on, you know, have a personal day. I realize that also having a personal day only helps me work that much harder versus kind of, you know, before I hit the wall of burnout. So again, I love that we get to talk a little bit about just the personal balance to fuel our professional self, you know, here on the C-Suite. So, Brian, we talked about so many different things. I'm so glad I was taking notes. However, before we say goodbye to everybody, this is your opportunity, maybe inspired by something we talked about or teased, of a 60-second tip for everyone, tangible, where someone can go and implement into their life, their business, their digital efforts, their content efforts. Now, 60-second quick tip, you have the floor.
Awesome. I love it. And a shout out to, I see Christopher said he is also ADHD superpowered. It is a superpower. Embrace all of your vulnerabilities as superpowers. That's what makes us beautifully unique. You know, for me, and you mentioned the word access, and it's the #1 word for me when I'm preaching to anyone about anything today, right? I think we can all agree that we believe the world needs to be a more empathetic place. But where do we start? How does that happen? I believe it starts by us individually allowing people to be empathetic towards us, which means giving people access to who we are, why we do what we do, putting ourselves out there, embracing video, creating stories, allowing ourselves to share, to share things that are out there. But I also know this can be very overwhelming and things can be coming in. And my call to action is look at your notes from this hour, right? For everyone that's watching all the notes you have, and put a star next to one of them, because there is tons of people that can learn, like take online classes, watch videos. There's lots of people that will learn. There's a whole lot of people that are going to create notes, create a plan, but there's only a very few people that are going to take action. Very few people are going to press the damn button and move forward. And that press the damn button doesn't have to be as scary as you make it, right? Like, give people access to who you are. Let them in to see behind the scenes in the studio. Bring up your dog and show them on screen, right? Like, get to see the core, right? Like watching your smile when you got to see your dog come in, right? Like, that allows us in to your world to be more empathetic. And so my challenge is take that one item and press the damn button on it today, because I can guarantee you have an excuse. Your hair's not right. The timing's not right. You have plenty of email. You have to cook. You have to clean. The kids are home. We all have excuses. But until we take action, nothing's going to change. So that's my call to action. I love this discussion. It's truly a pleasure to be great friends with you and kind of be on this journey as elder millennials and shaping the hopeful future for the future Gen Z and those that are out there. And thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you again, Brian. Thanks for everyone who joined in or rewatching our recording. If you want more of Brian, because I always want more of Brian, you can get him on his podcast, FOMO Fans, and press the damn button. Plus, just follow him at iSocialFans or Brian Fanzo across social, because he's always pumping out great content and quality content. Even personally and professionally, that's what I love your approach to life and to business. So thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and would also, of course, drop a comment in any of the chat forums here, even in the live recording of some of your favorite takeaways from today's episode, because that always gives Brian and I inspiration for future content. And because again, we love to feed content that our community is most interested in, and that fires everybody up. So thank you again. Have a great one. We'll see you here on the C-Suite next week.